RTE Soccer Women's World Cup podcast, sponsored by Cadbury. From grassroots to national level, a supporter and a half of women's football in Ireland.
Turn the world round, shut the show down. I've been spinning, couldn't slow down. On the roll now.
All right, welcome along to the RTE Soccer Women's World Cup podcast. Raf Diallo here, and every match at the tournament is live on RTE Television and the RTE Player, including Wednesday when Ireland take on Canada in their second group game in Perth. I'm joined today by Ireland international Megan Campbell and also RTE Sports' Paula Flynn, who is down under and has made it all the way to the west of Australia. And Paul, first of all, what's the mood in terms of arriving in Perth, in terms of the Irish fans, and then also the team, as I know you saw them off at the airport as well?
Yeah, so the team after the game on last week, I forgot what day it is even now, Wednesday, they finished up, they travelled back to Brisbane, which is about an hour flight from Sydney. That's where their camp is. They had a kind of a down day, and then they had a day off basically. And then they've travelled to Perth today. It's a 5-hour flight across the country, which just seems bonkers, really. It's like having a World Cup with a match in Dublin, a match in New York, and a match in Edinburgh, or something like that. But so that's what the team did today. They arrived into Perth around about 4:30, and there was a really good crowd. I mean, we saw the scenes in Sydney. It was very, very similar again this evening. There's around about 300 Irish people here, most of them from the Irish community in Perth, and also some kind of families and friends who have travelled over, and some fans too who've come here especially just for the World Cup. So there was a great atmosphere there, the usual ole ole's, there was a lot of hugs, and I suppose the main newsy kind of interesting piece was that Louise Quinn came through in a boot, protective boot. She walked through. She wasn't on crutches, but just the boot. She had a black eye for good measure as well, so she's been through the wars. But we had a quick word with Vera Pauw afterwards, and she suggested that she doesn't have too many worries, and she's hopeful that Louise might be able to make the match on Wednesday.
Yeah, let's listen to that, incidentally. Yourself and Samantha Libereri obviously talking to Vera Pauw just as they were about to head off.
Vera, I'll just ask you, a few days on, your thoughts now on the first game against Australia, now that you've had time to digest it and think about it. What did you make of the game?
Well, I've seen it back twice, plus all the clips, and I think we've done so well. We were controlling the game so incredibly well. I'm so proud, and it's only something that we can build on.
Your preparations now for Canada, you've arrived here into Perth. How are you feeling? How are things in the camp?
Really well. We have one knock, as you know. Louise Quinn had a knock, and we need to see how that goes, but we are confident that she can play. And other than that, everybody is fit, and we're preparing for the next game.
We saw Louise in the boot. Would that be a worry at this stage, just a couple of days to go to the game?
Well, of course, but it's precautionary. That's what now these days medicals always do when there's a knock, to settle it down in the first 48 hours and to keep it calm. So we're very hopeful that she can play.
The fans here in Perth, already similar scenes to Sydney. How does that make you and all the players feel?
Yeah, that is wonderful. That's so heartwarming, and we feel home in our first game. 20,000-30,000 Irish people, I don't know, but they were the loudest of all, and I hope that everybody turns up now again, and that we feel the same vibes as we had in the first game, because it really lifts us to other heights.
For Canada now, they had a draw against Nigeria, maybe a surprise for some people. So how do you feel about that result? How do you think, does it give us a better chance in the group of getting that second place?
Well, I always said that Nigeria is the best team of Africa, and their FIFA rankings is just because they need to play within Africa. So that result, I'm not so surprised. We were really hoping for this result, and that's what it came out. So the group is open again, and there's everything to play for.
Canada, what do you expect from them?
We expect the same experienced play as they've showed against Nigeria. We expect Fleming to play, and she will give an extra boost to the team. She's very creative, and she can lift the whole team to another level because of her abilities to play in spaces and getting players beyond the defense. So we're really prepared for that.
Just finally, on your own selection, we saw some great cameos off the bench the last day. Will players be pushing for places in the team? Will you think about making some changes?
They always do, but teamwork is teamwork, and we're going to see what we do for the next game, what is best to line up.
Vera, the head of Australian football, I was speaking to her the other day. She says she believes that Ireland will get out of this group. Do you agree?
Yeah, that's easy to say for others. We know the task that we have. We're playing the Olympic champions and the best team of Africa. So it will be really, really hard, but we will do everything to get there.
And finally, can I ask you, when you got the news the other day about Sam Kerr, how much did that shock you and change what you had to do approaching that game?
No, of course, it was a positive outcome for us because Sam Kerr is a threat in itself. She's arguably the best striker in the world at the moment. So, of course, but it did not change anything in our preparations because we did not prepare for Sam Kerr. We prepared for Australia, and Australia has lots of threats, as you've seen, all over the pitch. So, no, yeah, it was just even our set pieces did not change.
All right, so Ireland manager Vera Pauw there, and of course, as you said, Paul, you can hear the olays kind of filtering through in the background. But the general sense I get is sort of quiet confidence ahead of this Canada game, where, as you mentioned as well, there's, you know, the weather might also be a factor. We're kind of getting used to rain in July here, but there's expected rain in July in Perth as well.
Yeah, I think it's rained pretty much every day in Dublin since we left, so I don't want to rub it in too much. But yeah, we had nice blue skies and sunshine today. It's winter here, of course, but that seems to be certainly a whole lot better than the Irish summer back home. The team, I should say, after the airport, they went straight to training actually, and they had a good session this evening here in Perth, getting used to all of that. Louise Quinn wasn't there at all. She played no part in training, obviously, in that protective boot. And yeah, the forecast for Wednesday is actually for a lot of rain. Now, just chatting to someone locally here said there is a lot of rain expected. I don't know what a lot of rain means for the people of Perth. It is on the west coast. So I don't think it's going to be like the west coast of Ireland, but I don't think it's going to make too much difference to the outcome of the game. But it was interesting to hear Vera Pauw's thoughts on selection and changes and stuff like that. So we'll have to just wait and see how over the next couple of days how that's going to go.
Yeah, and Megan, from the recovery point of view, given the long distance that's being travelled, I mean, a 5-hour journey across from one side of Australia to the other, that's going to be key for, well, I suppose both teams as well. Canada, of course, are also making a similar journey, but for Ireland, like the next couple of days is going to be key in terms of just being kind of getting back to sort of match sharpness and I suppose doing away with the whatever jet lag is there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously they gain 2 hours, so that'll help the girls a little bit. But then in terms of the long flight, they'll have to have hopefully recovery skins on. I mean, they've got all the equipment that they need there to get the best recovery possible from the squad and the medical staff, and treatments when and where they need them. But I think today, like Paula said, like getting off the plane and going straight to do a session, it's kind of good for the legs to just get the rubbish out, as they say. Get the rubbish, the bad touches, the loose legs, get them ready to be firing again come tomorrow. So yeah, it's probably a good sign that the girls were able to get off the plane and go straight to a training session. Looking ahead to obviously the Olympic champions, it's another tough team, another tough opponent, and like Vera said, the draw against Nigeria doesn't probably leave the I guess the opinion of people watching on to know, okay, this is going to be an easy game, this is going to be a tough game, because obviously it ended up in a stalemate. So you couldn't point to say, oh, we'll probably favour playing Nigeria over Canada, etc. But another tough game ahead, and hopefully with the recovery of Louise Quinn back, I would like to think that, like Vera said, it's precautionary. Like on a long flight, you want to prevent swelling. So sometimes a boot can actually prevent that and be a good aid in that respect. So fingers crossed that's the only reason why she had the boot on her foot.
Yeah, and as you said, and as Vera Pauw told Paul, I mean, there is confidence that she should be okay for the game. But in the event, and in the very unlikely event that she's not able to feature against Canada, who's first in line? Is it Diane Caldwell, or are there other options there that maybe could take Louise's place?
Yeah, I think there is plenty of options that can go across the back line. We can change formations, but also drop in loads of different players. But you might see the likes of Meg Connolly going into the centre with Diane going onto the left. You've also got Claire Reardon, who has done well in getting called up to the World Cup squad ahead of in the Zambia game. So she can also play on the left-hand side. So it's a decision that obviously the whole squad will be itching to have their attempt at playing in a World Cup. But I know Vera and the squad will probably be looking over things over the next few days to make sure that they make the correct decision in their lineup.
Yeah, and I think we have to talk about Abbie Larkin, who is one of the people or players that are expected, possibly if there are changes further up the field, to come into the team against Canada. Obviously, still just 18 years old. And Paul, I mean, she was talking to our colleague Tony before flying out, and obviously we'll play a clip very shortly. There's high confidence levels, but it seems like Louise Quinn and herself are the ones pushing closest to if there are going to be a couple of changes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the interesting thing to see now. It's great to see Abbie Larkin. Every World Cup has its own story, and she has the potential, I guess, to go on and make this run a great cameo off the bench last day. And Lucy Quinn too made a difference. But actually, I mean, interesting. I was talking to Stephanie Roach yesterday, who's over here with us, and she'd know a lot more about these things than I would. But she seemed to suggest that it would be very against what Vera has done, set her stall out the way she sets out the team to go and make those changes. It'd be interesting to hear what Megan has to say about that. And also she made the point that when you're coming on as a sub like that, when you're 1-0 down, it's quite easy to bomb forward, to get on the ball and try to make stuff happen. You have to, maybe neglect some of your defensive duties anyway when you're chasing a game like that. And as we all know, for Vera, defense comes first. So look, it's great to see a young Irish star emerging on the biggest stage of all. It's great to see her around training and getting off the airplanes through the airports and all. She is loving every single minute of this World Cup, as are most of the team, has to be said. But it's just great to see. It gives everyone a good lift. If I was to guess right now, I would think if Louise Quinn is fit, then it'll be the same team. You heard Vera there in the clip talking about how fantastic the performance was. I think from her perspective, it was only the penalty given away was the only thing that went wrong the last day. So it'll be interesting to see. But it's great to have those options off the bench if it was. But yeah, I'm interested to see what Megan has to say about that from Vera's point of view about changes.
Yeah, and Megan, obviously you know Abbie very well, but let's listen to a clip of her first, and then we'll talk about your column as well in and around how fearless she is, and she does come across that way in this clip. But let's listen to her first, because I remember when I was 18, I didn't have this level of composure. So let's have a listen.
And at 18 years of age, to play in the World Cup, not just make it to the World Cup. Before the squad was announced, you were probably wondering, are you on the edge? Then you get into the squad, then you get onto the pitch.
I know. It's crazy how it just happened like that. Yeah, obviously I was so nervous coming onto the pitch, and yeah, all the girls are very supportive. They were very motivational. They were just like, just go on and do what you normally do. Like just embrace it. You're playing in front of like 70,000 people. It's like the most I played in front of was Tala before this. So yeah, it's incredible. And I think I had nerves coming into it, and then the first 5 minutes of playing, I was like just excited and was getting ready to just get on the ball and stuff.
I'm almost surprised that you say you had nerves. You didn't look at all. You just kind of went on and just took it by the scruff of the neck. Game face, yeah. Your game face has a smile on it.
Yeah. No, yeah, I was really nervous, to be fair, but I think the nerves kind of went away quite fast, to be fair. I was just kind of like, I'm here. I'm just going to be in the moment and just do what I normally do, and I've nothing to lose. So yeah, I think that's what I done. So.
And there was moments where you brought the ball forward, got balls into the box. I mean, you must have thought, maybe with the Katie one, maybe with the Louise one, that we were going to equalise.
No, like Tony, when I tell you, I was 100% sure that we were going to score. Like, obviously we didn't, but I was going to be like, we're going to score. Like we had them in the last few minutes, the game. We were all over them, and yeah, obviously unlucky with some of the chances we had, but that happens. So on to the next one anyway.
On to the next one is right, and it's something we said to you after the match, but there's you putting your hand up for selection now. If Vera's the teacher, you're the pupil going, miss, I'm going to play against Canada.
Yes. Obviously that's some door I want to be knocking on, you know what I mean? And yeah, I'm just going to keep working my socks off and training, just kind of, just do what's best for me, really, like at the end of the day, it's me who's going to play, it's me who's going to either be picked or whatever. But yeah, I think as a team effort though, we're doing really well, and I think whoever's starting on against Canada, we're going to be amazing, and we're going to win.
Yeah, that is certainly the attitude. And Megan, your column, it read, or the title was "Fearless Larkin can carry the fight to Canada," and she certainly comes across as fearless there. And she has been part of the squad for quite a while now. And maybe you might be able to give us an insight how well she settled at such a young age in a squad that is full of experience.
Yeah, from my time of being in the squad, she's quite actually a quiet character. You probably wouldn't think that as she comes across in the interview and obviously where she's on the pitch. But I think in general she can be quite quiet to begin with, and then when she gets her little group around her, like the Kira Caruso, Izzy Atkinson, they're a good trio together. And when she relaxes in and around camp, she's just a right good character, and she brings such positivity, like you've seen in that video, and just oozes in banter and getting the girls lifted and stuff, and silly moments, but can obviously bring the camaraderie around the team when needed. So yeah, she's just a big light within the squad.
Yeah, and the way you talk about that trio, it's sort of like USA '94 with the three amigos, I think, which was Phil Babb, Gary Kelly, Jason McAteer were the three kind of younger players, and coincidentally, Gary Kelly had held the record from 1994 for the youngest Irish player to play in a World Cup. That was against Norway back all those 29 years ago. But Larkin has now since beaten that in terms of being a senior player at a World Cup, beaten it by 2 years. And in terms of going in as a starter, do you expect Vera Pauw to start her against Canada? And if you were in Vera Pauw's shoes, would you pitch her in from the start?
I think it's a tough decision for Vera, obviously, with the performance that the girls put in when she's come on the field. Like, she deserves probably more of an opportunity than what she was given against Australia in terms of more minutes. But I mean, like Steph has alluded to and Paul has told you, she's probably very reluctant in changing her 11. And a lot of the people know who the 11 is 9 times out of 10. But if a performance like that, such as Abbie's, comes across and, maybe could change the impact of a game depending on Canada's areas to exploit, then you never know. The decision could be made where Abbie is the right player to start in that position. But it will be a big decision either way, whatever she decides to do. But I've no doubt that if she doesn't start, she'll definitely be coming on the field again after that performance.
Yeah, and the other thing I was kind of interested in was the tactical point of view and your own experience of playing wing back in a 5-3-2, and Canada will more than likely line up in a 4-3-3. Just how difficult is it as the wing back in a sort of just in front of a back three when you're coming up against a 4-3-3, maybe with an overlapping full back on the other side? How tricky is it? Because you've got two challenges, trying to get forward, but also possibly dealing with two players on your side.
Yeah, of course, your main target is to defend. That's why you're a defender. But at the same time, you've got to be the winger to get forward, to be able to join the attack and to create opportunities for the forward players and to link up play, really. I think playing against Canada, who play with a 4-3-3, who also have quite quick wingers, like Australia did, sometimes you could be leaving yourself 3v3 at the back. And obviously we don't want that opportunity because we know our defensive line probably isn't the quickest. We'll all admit that. So we don't want to take too much risk in that sense, especially early on. But maybe if you have the likes of, say, if we were going off the same 11, if you have the likes of Katie going forward, probably having Heather as, although we want her on the opposite end of the cross when it comes in, probably being a bit more reluctant to get forward as quick as she has, because you don't want the 3v3 left across the back line, unless then you get a holding mid to stay more central and to be that support system for the back line. But it's a tough shape to play against when you are in a 3-5-2, definitely.
Yeah, and if Jess Fleming comes in for Canada then as well, because she was obviously missing against Nigeria and is a key influence for them, what does she bring that Ireland will have to worry about? Because I know, you're obviously with her time at Chelsea, I think the 2 games that you were involved with Liverpool against them this past season, I think you played in the first one and she didn't play in that one, but then you weren't available for the second one. She played in that one, but I'm sure from team meetings and things, you probably have a very good idea just exactly how opposition managers tend to maybe highlight her.
Yeah, she's got a similar frame to Denise O'Sullivan. I would probably compare the two of them in a similar aspect of they're both very technically great players. They're small, they're agile, they're able to get around the pitch, but really good on the ball, and is able to be that link player for Canada through the middle and even out wide sometimes. So she'll definitely be a threat on the counter for Canada against us, and it's probably about nullifying her. Vera's alluded to it, so I've no doubt that they'll be focusing a lot on her, but you don't want to then focus a lot on her and neglect other players. So, they have threats all over the pitch, Canada. They've got Sinclair, who's the she's got a right good record of scoring goals, and Jessica Lawrence on the wing as well. So there's a lot of great players that they have that they can, create serious attacks from. And I think Jessie's a player who can, like I said, come in and be that link up and just create moments from nothing. But she's also a very strong physical player, and she's not afraid of a tackle. So I think if we can nullify her threat, then it can hopefully prevent Canada from getting any opportunities, or minimal.
Yeah, and as we await the game on Wednesday, obviously there have been matches today, and there's a couple of matches, or a few matches in between, and the couple of days in between as well. And before we talk about those results and fixtures to come, Paul, just in terms of the general atmosphere in the places that you've been so far, so Brisbane, Sydney, and now Perth, is there a sense of World Cup fever, even beyond, say, the Irish fans?
Yeah, I think there's absolutely no doubt that Australia is really behind this tournament. There's World Cup fever might be overregulated. I think the Australians would need to get to quarterfinal, semi-final, final, maybe for that to happen. But all through the week we were in Sydney, people were talking about it. They hear the Irish accent randomly anywhere you are, getting a coffee or whatever. People would say, "Oh, good luck in the game," and after the game, hard luck. It was on the front page of all the newspapers the following day. It's on the TV every single day. The TV news, they're covering it. So there is. I mean, Australians are mad about their sport, but this tournament is definitely doing well here. And actually, the Matildas, as they're known here, are better supported than the men's soccer team. They've had that bit more success over the years. So the fact that there was 75,000 people at the match, the vast majority of them Australian, I think it does bode well. And I know it's not much use to us in Ireland, but it is good for tournaments when the host nation does well. So that's certainly followed on through here to Perth. And I think it's something that is an interesting aspect of the game on Wednesday is just the Irish crowd here. I mean, 300 odd people coming to the airport today. Talking to people here, the game is on in the rectangular stadium here. I think it holds about 17,000 people, but most people who are living here in Perth seem to expect that will be almost fully Irish. So it will be a home game. A small full stadium is always great for atmosphere, and that's something in a tight game that may just help Ireland to get there. And I think everyone's just really hoping that we'll get some kind of results to keep our hopes alive and bring it all down to the last game against Nigeria. But yeah, I think definitely there's no doubt that the Australians are well into this tournament, and you'd know it's on when you're here.
Yeah, and a huge Irish community, as you said, in Perth as well. I think I know a couple of people who are kind of based out there and have been based out there for a long time as well. But on the pitch, Megan, today, obviously we saw Sweden come from a deficit to beat South Africa 2-1, and then the Netherlands edged out Portugal as well. And then just now, before we hit record, France and Jamaica drew 0-0, and it seems to fit into the theme of the tournament so far, where the underdogs have been really acquitting themselves well, apart from maybe one or two exceptions. It's the gap between the top teams and maybe the more emerging nations has really closed, and the organisation levels from those sort of emerging nations, there's definite progress being seen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can, like you just alluded to, you can see that there's not a lot of goals in every game, which shows that the competitiveness between nations is improving, and the gap is closing, and nations are improving on their national team and putting the focus within the women's team, which is then getting the results. Yes, it might not be the win or the draw that they wanted, but it shows that the gap is closing, which is an improvement overall for women's football and encouraging signs going forward for the future. I think in the background you probably still have a lot of a difference between the opportunities and what's on offer to players within organisations. Obviously funding and etc. is what I mean by that, but overall the performances on the pitch is what counts, and thankfully so far it's been quite a good World Cup for the onlookers to see that the gap is not massive anymore, and you're not looking at 8 and 9-0 games where it's not really a nice game to watch, as such. So it's nice to see that all groups are still open coming into the second round of games.
Yeah, and obviously the highlights of all of today's earlier games are on RT2 and RT Player at 9 p.m, just before the Sunday game, which will be at 9:30. You can also watch highlights of each game broken down if you go on to rt.ie and also on our YouTube channel. And then tomorrow at 7 in the morning, it's Italy against Argentina, and then 9:30 Germany against Morocco, and then Brazil against Panama at midday. And I guess with Germany finished second in the Euros last year, Brazil have had some iconic players like Marta, who's more of a fringe player now. Like, what's your expectation for those two, Megan?
The obvious one would to be saying that Germany and Brazil will come away with a win, but we've said that in probably previous games where you'd expect the bigger team to win games, and it's come tight. So hopefully the underdogs have another good round of games tomorrow, and it's entertaining to watch. But I think Germany have a point to prove after losing the Euros in the final to England. They want to come out and start their tournament on a positive note, and the same with Brazil, who are a well-known footballing nation, and in the men's especially they're well known for the tiki-taka and scoring fancy goals. So hopefully tomorrow we'll see some of that.
Yeah, and I suppose before we go, Paul, just again the itinerary now for the Irish before tomorrow.
Yeah, they're training again tomorrow here in Perth, and I guess that'll probably be key for Louise Quinn. You'd expect that she'll have to make that training session in order for her to start the game. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. Hopefully she'll take part in that session, and then it'll be all eyes on the game. So yeah, it's I guess that's the key now for Ireland is, and talking to Vera Pauw, whatever, it's getting the spirits up, getting everyone right, getting the minds focused, and it's getting. I think we take the draw right now, wouldn't we, to keep everything alive. So they'll train tomorrow. They'll get to have a bit of a stroll around the city. It's a lovely city, and they'll get to enjoy that. It's pretty laid back, a different vibe to Sydney, all right, and Brisbane, probably a little bit more like it. So yeah, it'll be nice for them to see a new place, get used to their surroundings, and all eyes really on the big game now.
Yeah, for sure. We'll be back obviously with the podcast tomorrow, and Paul, get some rest before the rain from here follows you over to Perth as expected on Wednesday. And Megan, thanks a million for your time as well.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Raf.
Turn the world round, shut the show down. I've been spinning, couldn't slow down. On the roll now.
A supporter and a half likes, shares, comments, and tweets. Cadbury sponsors RTE Soccer Women's World Cup podcast.